Today we're going to take a look at Vivaldi, which is another one of those kind of obscure browsers that your average computer user probably hasn't even heard of. So let's get right into it. Vivaldi is available on Mac, Windows, and a few Linux distros through the main software repository. Arch and Gentoo users can install it directly through Pacman or Portage respectively. Everybody else can just download the deb from Vivaldi's website and install it that way. Or on Debian-based systems, there's a little bit of extra work that we have to do to get Vivaldi through the repository. Because as you can see, it is not available in the software manager. And this is because we have to manually add it to the repository before we can install it that way. So what you'll want to do to install Vivaldi through apt is to first add this file here, vivaldi.list, into your etc apt sources.list.d directory. And inside of this vivaldi.list, of course, you're going to want to make sure that you're sudo to do all of this, or root rather, since you're in the etc folder. And what you'll want to add to that file is this line right here. And once you do that, you can then apt update, and then you can apt install Vivaldi stable to your system, and you'll have it on there. And of course, that's the same thing that you would do for all derivatives of Debian. So if you're on Kali Linux or Linux Mint or Ubuntu, it would be the same thing that you would do. So this browser's origins, they are a little bit strange. It is based on Chromium, but Vivaldi actually aims to function more like an older version of the Opera browser, which was based on Presto until around 2013 with the release of Opera 15. And that was just a few years before Opera became the Chinese spyware browser that it is known as today. So Vivaldi, it aims to reclaim the glory days of Opera, but with a more proper transition to Chromium. And the founder of Vivaldi is also one of the original co-founders of the Opera browser. So that's enough of the history of this browser. Let's get right into the functionality of it, the stuff that people actually care about. So there's a lot in here that other browsers don't have. Like, for example, if we open up this panel over here, this is where we start getting access to some of the good stuff. So there is a built-in notes tool where you can basically just take notes about whatever certain web page you want. Like, we can add a new note here, and we'll say that this is the Vivaldi homepage. And you can add extra stuff over to this note, like you could attach a screenshot of the page that you took the note from. And so that'll just be down here, and you can always open that up later. Another thing that you can do is you can actually attach an address to the note. Let me just delete this one and go back to it. So you could see here, you don't actually need to take a screenshot of it to do it. You could just add that manually. Let me close out of this. So let's go back to that page we were just on. All right, so we have this here. We can delete it. And you see that it doesn't have a link right now, but then we could copy this and add it in down there. And like you saw, it automatically gets added in when you go to take a screenshot of a page anyway. But now this note is essentially linked to this web page. So we could do something else, like create another note. And we'll say this is Amazon.com, and we'll do the same idea. So we'll just add an address to that. So now you see that each of these have like a little bookmark next to them. We can close out. And this note will save even after you close the page, even after you restart your browser. But then you can open the note address and it'll take you right to the page that has that note. Same thing with Amazon. So that's a really cool feature. And as you already kind of saw with the notes feature, you can take screenshots, but you can do it independent of the notes. So if we come over here, this is the built-in capture feature, and you get a few more options with it. So we could do a full page capture, we could do a selection capture. We have some options for how to save it, so we can do it as a PNG or a JPEG. We could copy it directly to our clipboard. I actually want to see if that does work. So let's capture. And yeah, sure, we'll activate that. All right, now let me see if I can just paste this into GIMP. Because that'll be pretty cool if I can. Hey, you can. All right, I was actually surprised that that would just work so flawlessly like that in Linux. I thought that there might be some extra stuff I gotta do, but no. So yeah, you can just copy it to your clipboard and then automatically import it into GIMP. This might actually make my thumbnail work a little bit easier if I use Vivaldi. There's, of course, features that just about every other browser has, like managing people or managing browser profiles. So you could easily do that, add as many people as you want, and then you got some cool little icons you can use to distinguish between those different browser profiles. So here's one thing that Vivaldi has that a lot of other browsers, in fact, I haven't seen this feature in any other browser, is tab stacking. So let's say that you've got some tabs that are all pretty similar, right? Like they're all having to do with one another. Like let's say you're shopping for computer parts, right? So you might have Amazon, you might have eBay, and you might have Newegg all open. Well, you can combine these into one tab. You can just kind of drag it on top of another one like that. So now these are both combined into one tab, and I should be able to add another one here. Yep, there we go. So now you can see all three of these websites are basically combined into one tab. And you can even do a tiling view to look at all of these at the same time. I think it's this. Yeah, here we go. So all three of these web pages are up at the same time. So like if I was to be looking at a specific product and I just wanted to compare on each web page how much that specific product was, this is a really good way that you could do that. Especially if you only have one screen. I mean, I've got 3 monitors, so I would most likely do something like this just across my monitors. But I could obviously scale this now, right? I could have tiled tabs on all 3 of my monitors if I wanted to go crazy and maybe compare against 9 different websites. And then if you want to remove this, we can just right-click on it and ungroup the tab stack, and then everything goes back to how it was before. So this is something that I really hope other browsers kind of catch on to and add as well, because like I said, I haven't seen this in any other browser. I don't think Firefox has it. I don't think that Chromium has it. So yeah, other browsers, take note. Some other things that pretty much every other browser has would be sync. So you can create a Vivaldi account, and then you can have your history and bookmarks and settings sync across all of your devices. Of course, those who have a bit more of a focus on privacy probably won't be taking advantage of this particular feature because it compromises your privacy to some degree. You can edit the appearance of Vivaldi. There's themes. that you can change as well. You can also, of course, change your start page, how that looks, and change the fonts and everything else like that. There are tab settings, so you can control how they actually stack up. You could, stack them to the left like this so that they're one on top of another if you don't want them to all be right up here across the top, or you could do it on the right, or you could do it on the bottom, whatever works for you really. Now, as far as I know, this browser gives you more customization options than any other browser does. You can even change your keyboard shortcuts. So there's a whole bunch of different shortcuts you can create here for your keyboard to make it more efficient. Same thing with your mouse. You can create a whole bunch of different gesture maps for your mouse just to make your browsing more efficient or easier for you. There's the search panel, so you can change what you want your default search engine to be. And it's pretty good that they mark DuckDuckGo as more of a private search engine. I don't know if you would really call DuckDuckGo a purely private search engine, but obviously it's a little bit better for privacy than any of these other ones that are listed here, or you can make it custom. Now, this is something that's not available on the mobile version of Vivaldi. You can't set a custom search engine there. You are restricted to, what is this, 7? Yeah, you're restricted to the 7 that they recommend for you. So that kind of sucks if you're on mobile, but most of the mobile browsers that are out there now, they leave a lot to be desired. I don't think there's any one mobile browser, at least that I've stumbled across, that's really great. Now, as far as the privacy goes, this is one area that is a little bit of a fail on Vivaldi's end, at least from my perspective, because obviously browsing privacy is pretty important to me. The default level is no blocking, so it doesn't block ads by default. It doesn't block trackers by default. Really, really terrible setup. Now, you do have a quick option to block ads and trackers, which we'll have to test that a little bit later to see how good it is, because in the little bit of testing that I was doing before I started this video, the ad and tracker blocking was absolutely abysmal, not great at all. So another thing that's great, because we don't want to get into the cons yet, we'll save that for the end, is this universal search tool that is built into Vivaldi that doesn't just search the web across your search engines, but it will also search across all of the tabs that you have open. So let's say that, I've got a lot going on, right? Maybe I've got a few different web pages that are open. Yeah, sure, we'll have AliExpress. That's actually kind of interesting that AliExpress is one of the recommended websites that's pinned to this home page here. I kind of wonder what's going on there. Same thing with the Home Depot. That's another interesting one that would just be on there. Anyway, let's say that I've got a few different tabs open and I'm searching for a mouse on Amazon. Well, I can bring up this universal search tool with F2. Let's go to a different page. Let's go to YouTube, and then we'll bring up that universal search tool, and then we'll start typing mouse. And then you can see here, so you can search for a mouse on Bing. You can create a note that has to do with the mouse, or we can just go here to this tab, and it automatically switches us there where the keyword mouse came up. So that brings us right to our Amazon tab. That's pretty cool, especially if you're the type of person that likes to have dozens of tabs open, because if you were on a specific Amazon page and you had, say, 5 or 6 other Amazon pages open, it might take you a while to figure out where you were browsing for that mouse. Another really useful feature for the multi-tab folks is a tab preview setting. So again, let's say that you've got a whole bunch of different tabs open. I think I'm at about 10 at this point now. So you can come over here until your mouse turns into this double arrow that's pointing up and down, and then click and drag down. and you'll get a quick little thumbnail preview of each tab that you have open. Because, if you had a whole bunch open, it's going to get to the point where all you can really see is like the little logo that's here to the left. And you probably wouldn't be able to recognize that for every single website that you visit on a regular basis, especially if you're that kind of person that opens up 24 tabs. But this is a handy way to make it so that you can figure out what tabs you have open, which one you want to go to next, without having to just click through all of them and waste a whole lot of time. And there's also tab-specific zooming. Now, this is something that a lot of people actually seem to be complaining about for Vivaldi. So you can see that I've zoomed into 150% on this tab, but if I go over to booking.com, we're back at 100%, and I could actually zoom out of that one a little bit to 50%, and this one's at 150%. So I'm guessing people are complaining because when they zoom in on one tab, they actually want that to be consistent across every tab in the browser. Like if you were to zoom in Firefox, it's going to do that. If you were to zoom in Google Chrome, it's going to do that. But I actually like the way that Vivaldi does it because, at least in my experience, when I need to zoom in or zoom out on something, it's not that I need that in the entire web page. It's usually just, or I don't need that in the entire browser. It's usually just one or two tabs that I actually require that function on. And the other ones, I just want it to be standard, 100%. So I actually wish that tab-specific zooming was available on all browsers. I'm sure you could do it with an add-on, but obviously you don't need an add-on to do this with Vivaldi. But I think a better compromise would be to have some sort of a setting that you can toggle that makes it either do it across all tabs or just do it tab specific like it defaults to. That way everyone can be happy. So there's a lot of stuff that is built into Vivaldi by default. It's a very feature-rich browser. Now let's get into some of the bad stuff about Vivaldi. So first off, it is not completely open source. There are some third-party proprietary code that is involved here. And considering that this is a cousin of the Opera browser, which got sold out to the Chinese and basically turned into a spyware tool, it's not great for this browser to not be completely open source. Like, again, there's already suspicions in the family there, so there really shouldn't be anything hidden code-wise in this browser. It makes it a little bit suspicious. And as far as improving the privacy settings, because as you saw by default, it's pretty bad, there is an area similar to About config that we have in Firefox. In Vivaldi, it's called Viveldi Flags. But there are a lot of settings in here that you would change in Firefox to harden that browser that are either not available in Vivaldi at all, or they're going to come up under completely different names. Because, for example, with searching these flags, and this is a partial string search that goes on here, so if these strings appear anywhere in the flag, it should come up. But certain things like fingerprinting, they don't come up. If we look at like crypto mining, that doesn't come up. If we look for first party isolation, that doesn't come up. There's no type of location settings, or I think it's like geo something in Firefox, basically the setting where a website can pretty much guess where you're located in the world when you visit it. Like if you've ever gone to Walmart or like Best Buy, for example, it probably, like it defaulted to a store that's nearby where I live. That setting doesn't appear in Vivaldi. There's no DNS prefetch. A whole lot of different settings that you would change in Firefox to harden it are just not available in here. And all of these you would want to change to optimize your privacy. Now, Vivaldi does have access to Chrome extensions, so you might be able to fix the privacy settings that way by just plastering on a bunch of add-ons on top of this browser, but that's obviously going to add a bit of bloat to it. And speaking of bloat, this browser is Chrome-based, which already is a bit of a bloated code base as far as web browsers go. It's certainly heavier and more RAM-hungry than Gecko, which is what Firefox uses. And it's also yet another Chrome-based browser, which in and of itself kind of sucks. I mean, it seems like literally every mainstream browser besides Firefox is Chrome-based, which really isn't that great for competition in the browser space when everything is just a reskin of Chrome. So let's do an actual privacy test. So panopticlick. So I tested this earlier, as you can tell by the link being a different color. And the results were pretty bad. So you can see that it doesn't unblock the third-party ads, even though you'd probably want to block those anyway. But it doesn't stop trackers. It doesn't protect from fingerprinting, and even with ads, it's only got partial protection. It's only got partial protection for trackers. Now, let's see if we can change that quick setting to improve it. I'm sure that there are ways that you could get this to be almost the same as Firefox. There's going to be a lot more research I'm going to have to look into because, like I showed you in the Viveldi Flags, they're obviously using completely different names. But let's go into this and let's block all trackers and ads. And let me see, it doesn't mention needing to restart the browser, so I'm going to assume I don't need to do that. Let's check this. And let's actually not do that because WebRTC is not great. It can actually leak your IP address if you're trying to use a VPN. And let's do session-only cookies, and let's block third-party cookies. All right, so we'll reload this page. Or actually, we'll do this. Reload it this way. All right, so let's see if this is better now. All right, so it's a little bit better. It still can't do invisible trackers very well on its own. It still doesn't block fingerprinting. Let's see the full results for fingerprinting. Yeah, so this is a lot of information that's being revealed, and it's actually telling me that my fingerprint is unique amongst the almost 250,000 people that have been tested. So not great. We would probably want to add uBlock origin, which we should be able to do. All right, there we go. And let's see, yeah, we have access to the advanced stuff, so that is great. We can probably harden our privacy a bit more with that, but like I said, this is going to require some more extensive testing and maybe a follow-up video if you guys are interested. Let me know in the comments down below. So now let's see if we can get a resource usage thumbprint on Vivaldi. So I got one earlier with Firefox, and I also had the uBlock Origin add-on added to Firefox. That's the only add-on that I'm using within Firefox right now. So that way we're making everything as equal and fair as we can, and I'm going to connect to the same sites that I was doing for my Firefox test. I think it's the top 25 most visited sites, something like that. All right, so we'll do a YouTube, we'll do a Twitch, do a Google, we'll do a Wikipedia, because you never know when you're going to need to do some debunking. We'll do an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, get all the normie sites going. Oh, yeah, I think I did have JavaScript enabled. Yeah, so let's do that. Actually, let's yeah, just change that default setting. Okay. So there we go. We're not default blocking it anymore. Yeah, because a lot of these sites are very JavaScript hungry, so that's kind of what it really boils down to in a lot of these browsers, is how well do they handle JavaScript. All right, it seems like it's already slowing down just from, like, noticing it. You know, just from the immediate look and feel. Got a few more sites to go. Almost there. Want to get a full day of normal user computing going on. All right, New York Times, and then some Netflix. And then why not go to weather.com? Checking the weather through a website. That sounds like something that a normal person would do. All right, Steam powered for some gaming. Okay, so let me make sure that I don't have anything else open that I didn't have during my Firefox test. All right, so now I've got the HTOP open here. And it's actually very, very close to what Firefox was doing. Yeah, it's about the same. So it's hovering at just over 4 gigs. Occasionally it's dipping below to 3.2, or 3.9 rather. It might be about, well, let's see, it's not going to 4.1, even when I click through all of these.
All 10 streams up of like one lobby.
Let's mute that. Let's see, if I open this up, yeah, there we go. So we can make it go to 4.1 by doing that. All right, so I think that's about a 0.1 heavier than Firefox was. This is the test that I did in Firefox earlier. So yeah, you can see Firefox averaged at about 3.9, and very rarely did it go to 4 gigs or above. So yeah, it's really splitting hairs at this point, but as you can see, Firefox is obviously just slightly heavier than, or just slightly lighter than Vivaldi is. Vivaldi is slightly heavier than Firefox when it comes to just the footprint, but both of them are around 4 gigs, under 4 gigs when you have 25 tabs open, which I would say is good enough, right? Most users, they're going to have more than 4 gigs of RAM in their system. So yeah, if you're having problems browsing in 2020, you might just want to actually add more RAM to your system. So this concludes my review of the Vivaldi browser. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything that I missed, especially if you are a long-term Vivaldi user. I'm sure that there's something that I probably forgot to go over since I've only been playing with this for about a day now. If you are a long-term user, let me know what your favorite features of Vivaldi are. Is it your favorite browser? Is there anything that it needs in order for it to be your favorite browser? And of course, be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe and notifications on so that you know when more videos like this are released. Bye now.